It's going to be a difficult conversation, but it is an important one. Our Justice Thursday conversation this morning takes us to a place where we're asking certain questions and we're looking at certain things that, if already not being done, must be done. And when we talk about victims of sexual violence, boys are victims too. That's what we're looking at this morning. A lot of focus has been on girls. Maybe it's because it happens more, but the truth of the matter is that there are rising cases of this violence against boys. There are rising cases of sexual assault against boys, and there are rising cases, but there are also more reported cases of this. So we're going to talk about it today. It is uncomfortable, it is difficult, but guess what? It is absolutely necessary that we do. Joining us in the studio this morning, Frida Mutinda is a children's advocate. She's in the hot seat this morning. Good morning, Frida.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Sorry, we got into it really quickly, but we will definitely be able to explain more. Levis Kagere is an advocate of the High Court and a human rights advocate also in the hot seat this morning. Good morning, Levis.
Good morning.
Karibu sana. Thank you both for being here today. Like I said, a difficult topic, but one that's happening, interestingly enough, in the open, but also in secret, to the extent that some parents do not know that this is going on until we have grown men who may have been through assault and nobody was the wiser. So we'll talk about these things this morning. But first of all, Dennis is going to share today's proverb. He'll tell you where that's from. We'd love your interpretation.
Today we find ourselves in a country that is considered to be the world's oldest tourist culture. We are in Egypt. Beautiful country. And the proverb we get from Egypt is, a monkey looks like a deer in the mother's eyes. A monkey looks like a deer in the mother's eyes. Ladies, go first. How would you interpret it?
A monkey looking like a deer is probably trying to hide the real picture of something to appear like a false image of something else. Yeah.
Well, Levi, how would you interpret it?
Every parent believes the best and perceives the best for their child. So I would assume that everyone would look the best version of themselves in the eyes of the parents.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. Very true. Can do no wrong.
Yes.
I mean, for the most part, yes. Can do no wrong. That's true. So, I mean, like I said before, our Justice Thursday conversation today is around prosecuting sexual assault cases. Now, let's get some definitions out of the way so that we know the premise upon which we're prosecuting and interrogating some of these things. When we talk about sexual assault, what is that? We'll start with you, Levis. What is sexual assault? Is it different and or the same thing as sexual violence or sexual abuse?
So sexual assault is part of sexual abuse because sexual assault is any verbal, physical or emotional sexual contact that may harm a victim or a person, and that is unwelcome. And for the purposes of today's conversation in regards to children, it's sexual violence is the wider definition of a manner of things, including rape, defilement, but sexual assault may include all these other things except physical, because these other things have a connotation of there must be physical touch, there must be physical contact, but assault expands beyond the physical touch. There is the emotional part, and the verbal part. Yes.
Verbal.
Yes.
Please expand.
Verbal sexual abuse, so where I may insult you, for example, or because of your sexual features. You have seen on social media people attacking others because of the sizes of their private parts and all those manner of things.
Okay. It's interesting because a lot now is coming to the fore that you didn't even realize there could be assault, but that people may be involved or in it. Over time, Frida, has it been targeted at girls and women more?
Yeah, over time, the society has believed that the girl child is the one that is more exposed to sexual abuse. But sexual abuse against boys it happens. It's only that it's rarely reported because of some factors that are happening within the community and some socialization aspect part of it when boys are being brought up. Yeah.
Like what?
When we look at the cultural aspect of it, boys have been brought up to believe that they are supposed to be brave, they are supposed to be masculine. So when a boy is violated sexually and they come out to speak about it, they will be seen as weak. They are not brave enough. So that limits the number of cases that are being reported.
So when you talk about when it happens to boys, it's rarely reported. What numbers are we looking at based off what is reported and that which you think is not reported?
According to a research that was done by our partner, Family for Every Child, 1 in every 6 boys has been sexually violated.
What?
But 1 in every 6 boys has been sexually violated. But when it comes to the reporting, and when you look at the cases that have been reported, there is underreporting of the cases. And partly we know that the society, all the way the boys have been brought up, they have been brought up to, there is the silence part of it. They are so silent about it, but it's still happening in our societies.
That number is huge.
Yeah.
That's a very, very large number of, just going from these statistics that you talk about today. Is it just the fear of stigma or this societal, cloak that Frida talks about that stops the reporting from happening? Or is it ignorance as well to the fact that it is happening? Levis.
Okay. So the biggest contributor to the lack of reporting, the biggest one is stigma.
Okay.
The way, as Frida has mentioned, the way society perceives boys to grow up and to be men and all that manner of things. But there's also the issue, as you've mentioned, rightly mentioned, the issue of ignorance among his parents, the issue of ignorance among duty bearers and the people who are supposed to protect our boys, and even amongst the boys themselves. So the way we have been brought up, our orientation as boys and as men in our society, especially in African setup, we are very conservative, and boys have been brought up to be very masculine and to be protectors and not to be weak. And when some of these things are reported, even the parents sometimes don't want to believe. So there is also the lack of belief that this may be happening to my child. And that report that Frida has mentioned even went above and mentioned that some of these abuses have happened in very close circles, by brothers, by sisters, by parents, by very close associates of these boys that are growing up. So because of that cloud of protection and the cloud of the closeness of these people and proximity of these people who are abusing these survivors and victims, then it becomes very hard to even report. Even our judiciary and our police systems sometimes fail us because when we report, for example, as a young man, if I go and report today that I was abused sexually, it will be very hard for the police officers to believe me. And that fear and the joking side of the police and just saying that, are you sure what you're saying and who did this? So that then becomes a very big element that hinders the reporting of these cases.
Frida, I want to look at how the police has been, because this is a violation that has happened and needs to go through the justice system. But for that to happen, then there has to be a complaint. This has to be reported. For a very long time, there has been polycare that has been set up to handle gender issues, But that has been, many say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that has been geared towards handling women issues, all right? So here we find a boy has come, a man has come, and the first thing you're told is, walikuwa umelala tu hapo pia, or ulikubali tu. I've heard someone say that they were told by the police, "Siulisikia poa," yet you've come to report a matter. If this is what is happening in these spaces, then how do we change how violations that have happened on a boy or a man would be taken seriously as those that have happened to a lady?
Okay, thank you. So the first step that we need to take is awareness creation. And I think there is a gap in the way awareness and sensitization has been done to the communities. As part of what we do at Pendekezo Letu, we create awareness to sexual abuse, not only sexual abuse, but any abuse that is done towards children. So we need to up the game on sensitization and awareness creation among our community members and across the sectors that handle child issues. Like it's a multi-sectoral approach. We need the police, we need the children actors, we need the health people in it for the healing process. So we need to do a bit more of the sensitization. And also when it comes to police, some of the boys fear going to a police station because probably there are no safe spaces. You know, you need to create a safe environment for that boy to open up and to speak to you and to trust you. But when the reception is a bit like it's not taken serious, it's like they're making a joke out of it, it becomes difficult for the boys to open up.
Okay, let's take a few steps back here. Who is abusing
The boys.
the boys?
People in their close circles, their parents, their siblings.
Their who?
Their parents. Some of them have reported being abused by their parents.
Okay.
Their siblings, some of them, their friends, their classmates in school. Unfortunately, even some religious leaders and their neighbors have been reported as some of the biggest contributors to some of these abuses.
And what is happening? I mean, of course, we know the timing that we're airing this, broadcasting this, but what is happening to these boys? What are we talking about here?
So majority is defilement. So for boys, their sexual organ are a bit different from girls. So it's what we'll classify as sodomy, but defilement, of course. So that is majorly what is happening. Some go to even to the extent you will hear of reports of oral sex by some of these boys. We were having a conversation with some young boys from Korokocho last week, and some of the things they were reporting to us were very horrifying, to say the least. That some were being paid to engage in sex with some very older women and some very old men, and some to even engage in sex amongst themselves as boys. Because as an organization, we also work with children in street situations. Some of the children in street situations have reported to be paid by people in their areas to have sex with animals.
Why?
As especially for children in street situations, when the motivation factor here is money. So you're being told that you'll be paid 100 shillings, or some of them even reported they were paid with food.
Okay. So in such situations whereby there's a commercial angle
To it.
how is this reported? Because it would appear as though there is compensation for something having been done, work, maybe, which is markedly, I mean, it's the same abuse, it's horrific, but it's markedly different from in a home situation, for example, where an uncle or an auntie or a nanny, which we also hear the cases where this happens, but it's different in that sense. So how is that reported? Can a boy come back to his family, his father, mother, and obviously the determining factor here is poverty. That if somebody's taking 100 shillings to perform sexual acts with an older person or whatever else, and is getting something in return, there is a poverty factor here that cannot be ignored.
Yes.
Now, on what basis, from an advocate's point of view, for both of you here, on what basis can you then go
and
report this?
So, as Freda mentioned, there is need for awareness creation on some of these things, because the boys, when they're engaging in it, as you've mentioned, there's an economic angle to it. These guys are coming from poverty, and any motivation they will take. So, but that does not negate that this is a crime. that is happening to these boys, and the person that is paying them is actually just taking advantage of the circumstances of these children. So as an organization, we have taken it upon ourselves to create sensitization to the boys that whatever is happening to you is actually a crime, and we are encouraging them to report, and we are actually even working with police officers in some of the locations that some of this information came to us to follow up on some of these matters. And even as an advocate, we have taken these matters as watching brief matters, where we will be acting for the victims and survivors of some of these horrifying stories that we've had, because this is just an adult taking advantage of the socioeconomic circumstances that the boys find themselves in.
Frida, I want to look at sex trafficking in the country among boys, because what has just been painted by the advocate seems as if this could be something that is happening in the country. Or is it happening? Are we assuming it's not happening? Hence the reason why we see the numbers go up. That together with the fact that today, if you are on social media, I get concerned so much, because most of the time when you're scrolling, there's an ad that just pops up, and it is all these chat apps that do exist, and these are places where a boy would easily get into, because it is not supervised by anyone. So are we seeing these numbers, first of all, go up because of social media? And as well, do we see that there are increasing numbers of sex trafficking in Kenya as we speak today?
Yeah, partly the digital world is to blame for the cases that are happening. So there is sexual exploitation and sexual trafficking that is happening online. The boys might not be aware of it because there is the money aspect of it. Sexual exploitation comes with the money aspect of it. They engage maybe in sexual acts, and they are sold out. The videos or the photos are sold out. So sexual trafficking and online sexual exploitation is highly happening and still is underreported. And the technological world is partly to blame of what is happening.
So we look at these apps, and most of them are not registered in the country. Like, they're registered outside our jurisdiction. So you'd look at the apps that we have, it is in the West. So you'd find that their laws do not apply here. So even when you're trying to sue, who do you sue? Using what laws, Wakili? So then one would ask the question, because we see it's a problem that does exist, how do we go about it to protect ourselves against these apps? Do we then follow the direction that then there has to be a law passed in Kenya that would protect our boys? Are these conversations that we are having?
As an advocacy organization, one of the things that we have taken up is to increase the age where children can be able to access social media. You've seen, I think recently, I think it's either France or Norway, that passed a law that limited access to social media to 16 years old. So that is something that we have taken up as an organization to advocate for, to increase the age where children can be able to access social media. And we are also working on a framework of policy legislation, where we will be talking to our legislators to increase the protective measures for the social media platforms and hold them accountable for some of these things, because it is their platforms that are used to abuse some of our children. So even as we continue to lobby for the increase in the age where children can be able to access social media, we are also trying to create a protective environment by the social media platforms, so that our children are protected in either case.
So this is one for both of you. We'll start with you, Frida. What should parents look out for if boys are being abused? And I'll tag a story, which is a case where a single mother had heard complaints from her secondary school going boy, and he said to her on a number of occasions, "I don't want to go back to school." And she thought it was just the boy acting up. And usually they would be ready to go back to school. He would have prepared his list of things that he needed. She would have gone to do the shopping. He delayed on this particular occasion to do this. And she said, "Well, send me the things that you need so that I can go and buy." Didn't do it. So she went out and she bought what she thought was necessary. And she came back and said, "We're going back to school on Sunday. Mom, I don't want to go back to to this school. And again, she thought, he's acting up. Come on, he'll get over it. By the time he gets back to school, a couple of days will pass and he'll be fine. Sunday after church, they were supposed to go back to school. She was going to take him back. She opens his door and finds that he's hung himself in the morning. She later came to find out that he had been sodomized repeatedly in school. And this is after investigations finding out what was going on. This is something that she's going to have to live with for a very long time. But what would be telltale signs that there's something going on with your boy against the backdrop of the societal pressure that you've talked about, where a boy has got to be strong and can't be in touch with these emotions? What should you look out for?
Thank you. So there are several factors that will, you as a caregiver or a parent, you will notice at the very first stage that your child or a boy has been abused. So number one, they might have difficulty in the way they walk. They change style in the way their walking style. So maybe they're experiencing pain. They have some bruises in their bodies, and they tend also to be irritable. Irritability gets high, and we also have withdrawal symptoms. They want to be alone. They don't want to build relationships with other people. They don't want to associate with other people. And also when it comes to sleep, they have sleep disturbances. So someone wakes up, they have nightmares. They fear sleeping alone. For example, if a boy was sleeping in their own bedroom, they fear now being alone, especially at night. Those are some of the signs that, as a parent who is watching out for their boy or their child out there, you'll be able to note something has suddenly changed about this particular child. Also, we have some behaviors that the child was initially doing when they are young. So they tend like they are going back to being a small child. So they start showing behaviors of like bedwetting. Maybe it was happening when they were young, but it has now reoccurred again. So that one should trigger you as a parent to notice that something has actually happened to the child. Yeah.
So, as Frida has mentioned, majority of the things to look out are as she has mentioned. But how then do you respond as a parent once you have noted some of these things? So, some of the things that we are encouraging parents to do is to create a safe environment, because unfortunately, many of the boys do not have a safe environment at home or even at school where they feel they can open up on some of the things that are happening to them. If your son is bedwetting and you don't notice as a parent, and that is something that you can notice easily when you walk into their bedroom, do you think there will be, it means that the parent is so detached from the lives of the boy that they're not even available? So create a safe environment, be available to the child. And also when for example, as the example you've used, the child is telling you they don't want to go to school, you think they're acting up. Do you dig deep to find out what is the root cause of why they don't want to go back to school? If they are telling you they don't want to go to school and you're not interested in finding out why, you just assume they are acting up, what then, as a parent, what are you doing to this boy? You are actually creating a barrier for them to tell you what is happening to them. Even if as a parent you may not be always available, at least be available when you are available. Because we understand the economic situation that we are living in, that we may not always be available to our children all the time.
But you can be present.
When they are there, at least be there for the child. Let them create a safe space where these children can always talk to you about anything that is happening in their lives, and take note of the small things that is happening. Go to their bedroom, see what is happening. Take note of what they are writing. Some of our children nowadays even have journals and they are writing things about what is happening in their lives. Go through those journals and read and understand what is happening in the life of my child. Interact with their teachers. Have they noted any behavioral change for the child? Interact with their Sunday school teachers. Interact with their friends. What is happening in the lives of these children?
There's a phrase out here that says the girl is raised by the community, but the boys raise themselves.
Yes.
You know, and that goes to show that many boys out here do not know where to run to, because the society has created a situation where kijana wewe lazima ukue mgumu, unajua kama mawe, kauka kwa mwanaume, you know. That is the notion that is out there. So you find that even when a boy goes through such instances, they do not know where to run to because they are alone, you know.
They're supposed to be strong.
You're supposed to be strong. You're supposed to go through it because that's who a man is supposed to be. And you look at even schools, especially boarding schools. I went to boarding school, and I would tell you for a fact that at times seniors in schools would be the ones, when you talk about verbal sexual assault, they happen in schools because someone would look at you, especially if you're from a different community, you know, and you would be attacked based off your culture. You would be attacked because maybe you are a Form 1 in school, and a boy would not know where to go to because that is a culture within the jurisdiction you find yourself in. How do these then contribute to these cases being underreported? And you find that as these boys grow up, they grow up being damaged individuals who do not know how to deal with their emotions. Are these areas that you're supposed to look at for you?
Yes. For example, April is the Sexual Awareness Month. And unfortunately, if you look at our media, if you look at our the lobbying that is done around that month, it's majorly around protection of girls from sexual violence. So you wonder, is it that boys are not victims? Is it that no one is talking about boys' cases and what have you? So I'd say that we are creating and have a culture of creating, especially in Kenya and in African setups, we are creating damaged men. We are creating damaged men who have been perennially abused from their childhood to their adulthood, and there is nothing they can do about it. They have been told that this is the only thing they can do, and that is how they're supposed to grow up as men. They're supposed to be hardened. They're supposed to be strong. So as an organization and as a coalition and a consortia of organizations, we came up with lobbying mechanisms to have something called the Blue Umbrella Day. So the Blue Umbrella Day is supposed to celebrate and commemorate and create a day where we speak about issues of protection of boys against sexual violence. And last year, we collected 57,000 signatures across the world to lobby the United Nations to recognize the 16th of April as an International Day for Protection of Boys Against Sexual Violence. Because as a month, we celebrate girls a lot and we protect girls a lot and create awareness around protection of girls, but we leave out the boy. And when the conversation is not happening in parliament, in the media, then even creation of safe spaces and creation of safe legislations for boys becomes very hard because no one is talking about it, and there is no day that has been created to talk about some of these things. So that is one thing that we are trying, so that these cases come to the fore, and people and legislators and policy makers and duty bearers now start addressing some of these issues, because the UN has taken recognition of it and created a day where we are specifically addressing some of these things.
How do we deconstruct some of these pillars that have been set up? Whereas there's the understanding that, you know, the very picture of masculinity is one who doesn't speak out about issues. But if you ask me, that's the person who is at their weakest. It's not strength. It's not strength to not speak up. It's not strength to not be in touch with a fear or an emotion. It's weakness. So how do we start to deconstruct and turn around that thing that has taken masculinity and has turned it into something else? Because masculinity has nothing to do with not being in touch with your emotions. How do we turn that around? Because men are suffering from pressure that started when they were children. And we're talking about abuse today. Who's to know how many men, like you say, 1 in every 6, who's to know how many people are walking around society today having been victims of any kind of abuse and or assault, and they're actually now playing it out in the way that they behave because it's not been handled? How do we do it, Frida?
Thank you. The first thing that we need to do is to allow men be men and sensitize men on being vulnerable. The society views women as more vulnerable than men. For example, as a parent, and majority of the parents out there, they would be more worried if their girl child is out maybe by 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. But it's not the same case when it comes to a boy child, because they believe the boy child will be able to take care of themselves. So we need to shift our mindset from seeing girls as more vulnerable as compared to the boy child. We need also to sensitize the boys that it is good, it is well to come out. It's good to express your emotion, it's good to be vulnerable and not stigmatize them. I think that is the biggest hindrance that we have in the underreporting of the cases, because they feel like when they come out, they will be ashamed, they'll be stigmatized, and people will view them as just being weak. So that is something that we need to deconstruct from the society, the family level of it, and up to the society level of it, and even to the actors that are working in the protection space of children. So we need to move from the narrative of seeing boys as strong, they cannot speak about what happened to them. We want to allow men to just be vulnerable. And we also need to create safe spaces at home, within the community, in school, and also in other health sectors, and even in the court systems. We need to create safe spaces where a boy will feel safe to just talk and to express themselves.
An absence of safe spaces, absence of how do I put it?
Event channel.
Event channel for boys to just come and speak, and also mentors, because you find you'd go back to the traditional system where you find people have been in age sets, where a group of boys would come together and talk among themselves, to be able to know how things are, because that then would lead you into adulthood. But you find that with time and the development, these things have kind of watered down and have disappeared in our spaces today. But that notwithstanding, today as a boy, I have issues. Who do I talk to? Mom is busy, dad is busy. I'm raising myself. Who do I talk to? Would we say that if today we were to call men into a group, say 6 men into a group, to just have conversation about their upbringing as boys, for them to be men today, would we see a departure from protection as a child, as a boy, and absence of the same that has led men to be, I want to cry, I do that in my shower or under loud music because people should not hear me breaking down?
It goes back to our social orientation, how we were brought up. Our parents were never available for us to be able to vent out or to speak about our issues that boys are facing. So then we carry it over into our adulthood. So that's why you will find men crying in the shower and all that manner of things. So as a team, what we do, we are now creating something called positive masculinity. All the aspects that Frida's spoken about. How do men become vulnerable and open to, even if your parent is not available, I believe your friend is available to talk to. Your teacher is available to talk to. Your Sunday school teacher is available to talk to. Your neighbor is available to talk to. We just need to create. And also, even because some of the cases of sexual abuse have been reported amongst peers, and the cases that are happening amongst peers is because I was abused, and because this was treated as norm, I go ahead and abuse someone. And that is even how bullying in secondary schools works. Because I was bullied, I will bully another person because this thing has been normalized and been treated as okay and as the norm. So then how do you tell these boys that even if this happened to you, it is not okay to do it to someone else?
Sure.
We cut the chain of this abuse happening. So you can only do that by creating sensitization, and for the ones that have not been abused, by creating this positive masculinity culture where boys can be able to speak up and be vulnerable and not to be perceived as weak, and even create awareness to their teachers and their parents and the society at large, so that when these cases are reported, they will treat them with the seriousness they treat the girls' cases.
Exactly. So when you have, some of the people that you've just mentioned, parents, teachers, societal agents, going into, governance, police.
Yes.
If this is the thought amongst the, possible victims, the 1 out of 6 that we mentioned, how then does that change the mindset? Let's go to a police officer, for example. I remember that 2 police officers, who then were able to launch and really push Polycare. One of them being Officer Zipporah, and the other one who's a previous police spokesperson. That was one Bernard Shoshio. There's an understanding in the minds of those two that anybody who comes into a police station to report a case of abuse will be listened to. But unfortunately, they are in the minority. So today, if a boy is abused and their parents want to go and seek help, or their guardian, or they themselves, we know today that the default response to that will be doubt. Whether this really happened or what's wrong with you, why should you come and report such a thing? How do we deconstruct that? How do we, even teachers in high schools today or primary schools, they're likely not to believe that this happened, or are likely to tell this boy that they're misbehaving, or they're just trying to make up a story. So aside from deconstructing this thing in the minds of the boys, whereby it's going to be okay for you to have the conversation, how do we deconstruct it in the minds of people who are judging these boys from the get-go that maybe they're lying? How do we do that? Because it's a whole ecosystem here. How do we deal within that?
I'll pick it up from Polycare, and because Polycare had been raised earlier. Polycare was supposed to be an avenue or a police department that was supposed to be protecting victims of sexual abuse. But in essence, it ended up being like a gender unit. And our perception of gender is that it's women issues or it's girls issues. And therefore, if you ask them the number of cases of boys that they handle at any given time is very few, because, and even when they are reported, as you mentioned, is how seriously do they treat them. So what do you do to change that narrative and that perception of how they treat some of these things? When you create a department in the police and you do not take the police officers to a training and to a sensitization, because remember, these are police personnel treated to maintain law and order, deal with adult cases, and you've not taken them to a special training to understand and to deconstruct their perception of boys' cases, and you place them there, how will they take these cases and handle them? So as also an advocacy issue, we are also trying to work to have conversations with the with the Kenya Police Service to see whether this can be changed, and in their curriculum of training, or they can even have a specialized training that, like they have for trafficking, they can have a specialized training for sexual abuse response, because some of the sexual abuse cases also fail at court because of poor investigations and how the investigations were done at the police level. So that determines a lot about the success of the cases. So we are also trying to have conversations with the National Police Service to just have that included in the curriculum. The same thing, we are also having conversations with the judiciary, especially the ones that deal with sexual abuse cases, where we recently created a sexual violence gender unit at the judiciary, and we have a court at Kibra, for example. How are they trying some of these cases? Are they creating safe spaces in the courts for children to come and testify? For example, do they have a safe witness unit where boys can come and talk about their cases and not have fear of these things falling back on them by the perpetrators?
I mean, Frida, there is also the aspect of how long these matters take in court. You know, because it would not make sense that it does not make sense to individuals, survivors, who end up in court for 6-7 years in a matter. Every other time you are going back there hoping the matter will end. You know, the time taken in court, many would say, keep on reliving the experiences. You know, it is elongating a journey that they want to move on from, you know. So how are we having these discussions with the powers that be to look at timelines in handling these cases? Because the longer it takes, many say it is justice delayed.
Yeah. It is, like it's normally said, justice delayed is justice denied. And partly it has also contributed to people holding up and not reporting those cases, because no one would want to move around with a case for like 6 years. Because the trauma, it will always remind you of the trauma that you went through for like 6 years. So we're doing capacity building for the actors that are in judiciary as an organization. We also do capacity building of the CSE members, and we create sensitization on how the cases should be handled. Because when a perpetrator is brought to book, it also sends a message out there to other perpetrators that are within the society that these cases will be tackled to the end. But when a boy reports a case and the perpetrator is not arrested, the case is not completed, it creates another negative aspect of the judicial system to the boys and to society members. So they fear now from going to report the cases. Yeah.
I mean, Levi, I want to look at, we've normalized, as a man, I would take my daughter out, it is our date to just sit around and talk. That doesn't happen to boys.
Boys, sure.
You might as well just go out there, play your football, and where Japan
come back.
But these are things that should be normalized as having safe spaces between parents, because the first point of defense for a boy is for a child is the parent. And the child needs to trust that the parent is there to listen, not to order, not to direct, but to just listen, such that if anything happens on the social media, because today we have children who are in CBE, and most of the learning happens in the digital space, online. How are we having these conversations with parents to... It's good to continue doing it. Take your daughter out, enjoy that. But equally, have a mother-son date out. Father-son date out, to just talk and know who your child is, because most of parents out here do not know who their boys are.
I think from experience and from observation, the modern parent right now is a majority of us, fortunately, are treating our children as equal. And you'll find a man taking their son out, having conversations with them. Even when they're going for football, they will have conversations with each other. But I wouldn't say that is across the country. That may be in our urban centers, where probably because of our exposure to much more information, we are able to do that, and we know the risk that our children are exposed to. But in our rural setup, because majority of these cases are happening in our rural setups, because parents are busy in farm work, are busy at work, and all manner of things. So we also need to go beyond the cities and go back to our homes and talk to our parents and talk to our grandparents about some of these things, so that whatever is happening in the urban centers, however we are treating our children, they also treated the same back at home, in our rural country, in our rural areas, and even at school. We need to talk to our teachers to treat our boys and girls equally. When a boy comes to report an abuse case, treat it as seriously the same way you will have treated if a girl had come to you and said that they are abused.
Maybe to add on what Levis has said, there's this conversation on sexual abuse that we shy away from as parents, that we do not want to hold those open conversations with the child at home. So it has come to a point that we as parents need to have open conversations with the children at home and discuss the sexual violation, sexual abuse that is happening. People feel like it's something not to talk about. And it limits the awareness that we are talking about. So as parents out there, we need to create time and have open discussions at home and just discuss the matter as it is, not just shying away from it.
Or call it something else. Actually call it for what it is and be open. Is it too late? Because I've seen a question someone has sent to me. Is it too late to start to have those open conversations with your boys who are 14, 16 years old, who you've not really done that during their socialization ages? Because look, by the time they're 8 years old, these kids are socialized. They're now entrenching what they've learned by the time they get to 10, 11, 12. So is it too late to start to be open with them when they're already in, with their prepubescent, after puberty, adolescence, now into teenage years? Is it too late?
It's never too late.
Okay.
It's never too late. Actually, at 14 or 16, you can even have more candid conversations with them, because they are at their age of puberty. They are learning some of these reproductive issues at school. So you can have more candid conversations, as opposed to when a boy is 6 years old. There are conversations that they may not be able to understand. So at 14, at 12, at 16, you can be more candid with them and more straightforward, that if this is happening to you, just feel open and come to me. I'll be always open to you to listen and to to act and just create an environment where we can always talk about these things. So it's never too late.
It's never too late.
Are we seeing this conversation penetrate in our communities? Why do I say that? Because you find in most communities, these things would be handled in barazas, masla law that is there, chini ya maji, and to just forget about it. Not necessarily because there is justice that has been received. This is not to water down what communities can do within their jurisdictions, but you find this is so that this thing is handled amicably. But for the victim, their issues have not been handled to like what it is they need, So how do we penetrate into these communities that have been closed off for a very long time?
So to penetrate to the communities, like last week we had a campaign at Korogosho slums that brought in together the caregivers, the parents, the boys themselves, the girls themselves, teachers and other stakeholders, the children officers. So we had an open conversation about the sexual violence against boys that is currently happening. So that is the first step, just creating awareness and bringing every actor on board to talk about this issue. Because when a case is tackled amicably, the only person that we are protecting is the perpetrator, and we are denying justice to the boy that has been violated. So that is a conversation that we as an organization has taken it beyond our communities to create that awareness, to build a collaborative joint efforts to ensure the cases are reported and also the victims are brought to book. Yeah.
How many, might be in terms of numbers, cases that have been prosecuted in court, because we often say that they are precedent-setting processes that would either scare the perpetrators or at least entrench in the minds of victims that this is something that you can actually bring forward. Do we see that there's the successful prosecution of such cases, especially for boys, in the judicial system today?
Yes, there has been a successful prosecution of cases, but unfortunately, I don't know why, because the issue stems back to reporting. The number of cases that boys are reporting is very few. The ones that end up in the judicial system are very, very few. Out of 10 abuse cases that are reported at a police station, only 1 or 0 will be a boys issue.
And this plays against the number of 1 in every 6 boys being abused.
Boys are being abused, but they're not reporting out, or the cases are not reaching the judicial system. So even if the judiciary is deciding these cases and setting precedents of how we should address some of these things in future and creating deterrence to perpetrators, unfortunately, the community is not seeing more of this, because very few cases are getting to court. So in a community like Korokocho, for example, if in the last 10 years they have not seen any cases go to court, there will be no deterrence for the perpetrators. So it stems back to reporting. We should have as many of these cases being reported and taken to court, so that the court creates precedents and creates deterrence to the perpetrators, because we should have more perpetrators jailed.
There you go. And if anything, we should talk about these things. Under the cover of darkness is not where we want them to be. And we appreciate both of you for doing this with us this morning. And we can be sure that we will continue to have such conversations. One of the things that talking about these things does is that it doesn't allow it to be hidden, and that we can come to the acceptance that these things exist and that there is something that can be done about it. So there's a lesson for everybody here today. And we're grateful to both of you, Frida Mutinda and Levis Kagiri, for joining us on Justice Thursday this morning. And everybody who's joined us in the Situation Room this morning, good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.